Agustin, I want to ask a question that I'm sure everyone who clicked on this video has in their mind, and that is, how much do you earn working on a cruise ship? What do you like the least about working on a cruise ship? Or what would you change?
What are the essential requirements they ask for in order to hire you?
7 months? How do you do it? To satisfy your most primitive, most carnal needs.
And what advice would you give to all those who want to work on a cruise ship someday?
Hello.
How are you?
2 crazy travelers.
Those crazy guys on a cruise?
As you read in the title of this video, we're going to find out what it's like to work and live as a crew member on a ship. How much do they earn? What are their working hours? And how much free time do they have to explore the destinations visited here? These and many more questions are what we're going to be finding out in this video. Without further ado, let's begin.
I'm here with Agustin, an Argentine we met a couple of days ago here on the cruise. And since you all are just as curious as we are about what it's like to work on a cruise ship, we asked him if we could ask him some questions about what he does, and he agreed. So thank you so much for being here with us.
Okay, well, it's a pleasure, Vale. My name is Agustin. I'm part of the sports staff team here at Royal Caribbean. This is my first contract with this company. I've done other contracts with various companies in different areas, all related to the sports team. So here I am.
How does someone get to work at Royal Caribbean?
Well, basically there are several ways you can apply. Specifically for Royal Caribbean, you can apply through their main website. Usually you can search through Royal's main website with the word careers next to it. Searching for Royal Caribbean careers. Just like in other companies, you can apply for the different positions that the company or various companies have available.
And what are the essential requirements they ask for in order to hire you?
Mainly it's communication. In working on a ship is crucial due to the diverse nationalities and backgrounds of the crew. This diversity is both a positive aspect and a challenge. Knowing how to communicate is essential, and English is a crucial language to learn. As a second language, English is essential for working here, right?
Native language would simply become your second language?
Exactly.
It doesn't matter if you're from Brazil, if you're from India.
Exactly. Usually on this kind of ships, what they do is sail around Europe, the Mediterranean. What they ask for is Spanish speakers. So you'll see that on this ship specifically, there are many Spanish speakers. Obviously, English is very necessary. It's essential, but, well, it's good. It depends on the location of the ship. They might request individuals from specific regions, such as Latin America, Spanish speakers, or other locations. For instance, some Japanese cruises specifically seek out multilingual Japanese individuals. In relation to, let's say, the place where the cruise is.
Of course, it makes perfect sense. Agustin, and what is your job position here on the ship?
Well, I'm part of the sports staff team, right? It's my first time as sports staff here at Royal, right? We have various activities here on board. For example, this morning I saw you at the flow rider. I'm actually a bit wet if you see me. That's exactly why. It's the surf simulator we have, among other activities that my team and I are in charge of the zip line, for example. Generally, the big Royal ships have those kinds of activities, which are, for example, for massive ships. There are others, like volleyball courts, basketball courts, and so on, where we are in charge of organizing tournaments, recreational activities for babies, for older kids, depending on the age.
And are you always in the same spot, or do they rotate you through all the activities?
Usually we all rotate. For example, this morning I was only at the flow rider, but now I actually have to go to the zip line, which is the tirolesa. Then we have, as I mentioned, volleyball, basketball, soccer, golf, and various activities. Also, yesterday I was actually at laser tag for the first time, which is a whole circuit we created with guns and pistols so that the guests can have fun, especially the younger ones. I must take you there. We have to go.
Please let us know if it's going to happen again at another time so we can do it. How would you describe a workday, seeing that you have so many things to do throughout? For example, out of everything that would be part of our trip?
Obviously, it varies significantly for each job position. Personally, I've been in the fitness area, in the gym area, and also as part of the sports staff. I've overseen all physical activities on the ships. It depends on your position, yes, but the most important thing is to always check your schedule, your timetable a day or a few days in advance. Because you have a whole organizational system where you'll have various tasks here on the ship, so you have to organize your day accordingly. Yes, also depending on what you want to do, because, well, we have our work here, but we also live here, so basically we have our work activities. Then, if we go out and want to go to the gym, if we want, I don't know, to go to a bar or go to some parties, yes, we also have space for that, that's right. But mostly it's related to your work system. You organize your day based on what you want to do.
Because your schedule changes daily, right?
Exactly. In my case, yes, my schedule changes daily. Also, when I was in the fitness area at the gym, my schedule was usually always the same, but the activities changed then. These days, my schedule is quite variable. For instance, I have a 3-hour break today. I was at Pro Rider from morning until 3 in the afternoon when I started zipline. I'm available to go to the gym and so on. But well, there are other people who have other jobs that do work in shifts. Some are there for 4 hours on, 4 hours off, or they're there all day, and then others rest, right? It generally depends on the position, right?
How many hours do you typically work per day?
It depends on the job. For instance, in my last job, I worked a lot, around 10 hours per day. 12 hours of work is a lot. That's pretty much how you get started in this line of work, working on ships. Once you start moving up, you get promoted and so on, because that's also something about working on ships. It's a good way to move forward. The job is scalable. At first, you'll start by working a lot of hours. There is some pressure, but then little by little, what I did personally was switch to this company because I liked the background much more, let's say, the references it had. I'm much more comfortable these days. Yes, basically, nowadays I'm working between 8 and 9 hours. Yes, some days less. Yes, some days more. It depends on how full the ship is. For instance, during a port or sea day, which essentially means when the ship is in port, usually the vast majority, the overwhelming majority of passengers get off. So there's a lot less flow of people. Usually we work fewer hours then. When we're on a sea day, which is a sailing day, it means the ship is at sea all day and it moves a lot. Usually that's when we work more because there's a lot more flow of people.
Look, I'm really curious. How do you manage your free time? Is your free time in hours? Is it daily hours or do you have full days off?
Usually, yes. For example, right now I've just started working as sports staff, so I have a lot of trainings, a lot of courses, because that's also a fundamental part of working on ships. You always have a lot more training when you're a new hire, meaning you just started at the company. Usually you have to do a lot of training to get started. And for example, yesterday I've only been with the company for 4 or 5 days, so I've had my time off. But yesterday was my first time going out to port in Italy, and I had time to enjoy the place. But generally, I have a lot of trainings. I'm having a lot of trainings this month. It's going to be more or less like that. That's how it is when you start. But having the experience from my previous ship, I can tell you that generally we always have a half day off, which is like half a day off. That gives you time to go out to the port, travel, enjoy whatever you want, the particular port you're in, wherever it is. But basically, yes, it depends on your job position. The distribution of your work is different. So there are people who can go out for much longer. Some people have a full day off, which I've only had a few times. So this is a job where you probably won't have many days off, or at least not a full day off. But well, that is also balanced out by the beautiful places you get to know and how much you travel. So it's like a balance. If you want it, you can have it, but you have to work for it, of course.
And how long is the total work period?
My current contract is for 7 months of work. In my previous position, I worked for 10 months because I extended my contract. So it was originally a 9-month contract and ended up being about 10 months.
Because you told us that you had also worked on other cruise ships before?
Exactly, yes. This is the largest cruise ship I have worked on. It's really huge. If the guys have shown you around the ship, it's an incredible thing. Yes, even I am very amazed. It's crazy. I've been on other ships that were a little bit smaller, from the Norwegian company and from the Marella company. As a fitness instructor, I had already mentioned to you But anyway, basically all ships have different proportions and different activities inside. And for example, my position is not on all ships, it's only on the largest ships in the world. Usually if you look for cruises, you'll see pictures of very, very large cruise ships. They're typically royal cruises, which feature amenities like a sport deck. They have lots of slides, lots of water parks, and different activities. That's what I would handle, so you can understand better.
Incredible, incredible. And we still have more questions, so keep watching this video. We were going to go up by the elevator because we want to change spaces so you can be more entertained. Agustin told us he couldn't go up by the elevator and had a specific place where he could go up. How is that, Agustin?
And that's correct, yes. We generally, as I was telling them, we have like a sort of parallel ship, areas where passengers can't go. Right? That's the area where we move around, right? We have our own elevators, we have our own stairs, our own routes to get from one place to another faster. Exactly for that reason, right? Because we give priority to the passengers. So there are certain rules that generally, if they can be avoided, for example, using the passenger elevators, it's much better.
We can go up the stairs, but not use the elevators. So here, for example,
you will see throughout the entire video probably several areas that have that little sign that says crew only on every floor, in every room, in every area of the ship. You will find exactly those doors. Those are the places I was talking about. Basically, these are places where passengers can't enter, but I could enter. But it's basically like a separate ship where you can move around in different ways.
And what is the space like where the club spends its time?
Where are you all every day? Where do you eat? Where do you spend your free time? Where do you exercise?
And well, as part of this parallel ship I'm talking about, we have different activities. Also, just for us, we have different bars. I don't know, for example, we call them boliches. In Argentina, that would be like bars or pubs. Depending on the ship, there are more or less of them. This ship, for example, still has a lot. I haven't been to all of them. There are still many places to discover, even for me as a crew member. We have our own gym, we have our own restaurants, or basically places where we go to eat. Yes, everything is separate, also so that we can have our own space and give priority to the passengers. And
the buffet changes. There is a buffet. The food changes daily.
And yes, the food changes daily. Yes, the food is very diverse. So obviously, as I said, it always changes depending on the company you're with, depending on, the situation and so on. Yes, that changes a lot from ship to ship, but yes, the food is very good, it's very tasty, and yes, it's very varied. Obviously, we don't have very gourmet or very specific meals. While not known for gastronomy, we have a good variety of cuisine.
Agustin, Valeria, I was just asking you about what it's like the food and the internal part, just for the staff. But I want to know what the dormitories are like. Are they bunk beds for 2 or 4 people, or are they much bigger?
Yes, that's also something quite unique about working on ships. You have to learn a lot about codes of coexistence, as we call them. Okay. Because basically, generally, you'll always have to share a room, right? There are people who, depending on their position, might be able to have a room to themselves, right? Usually higher ranks like the captain, but generally you always share a room. Yes, with one person, in my case, for example, or sometimes with 2 people. It depends on the ship. There are also bigger cabins, right? I've seen cabins for up to 6 people, but on this ship, I think there are only cabins for up to 4 people.
Agustin, tell me, what do you like most about working on cruises?
What do I like the most? Well, look, Emma, for me, I think what I like the most in particular is the fact that I get to meet people, right? Working on ships has really opened my mind. Yes, I've gotten to know different cultures. I've met people from different parts of the world. I have friends, from all over Latin America, like Mexico, Venezuela, Ecuador, Colombia, and so on. And also a lot of people from Argentina that I've met thanks to working on ships. You meet them in, let's say, really crazy places because, well, people from Argentina who might go to the same places as you. When you're in Argentina, but you never ran into each other, but you meet on the other side of the world, so that's really crazy. just like people from very different nationalities and cultures, people from China, people from Japan, people from Macedonia, from the Philippines, from Kenya, from South Africa, from many places, many nationalities. So for me, I think that's the nicest, most enriching and fruitful thing about working on ships, right? The fact that sometimes to meet so many people, I mean, the interaction with them, trying to find the middle ground to be able to connect and to connect with people who are so different from you is amazing.
Well, part of our job is also being able to talk to people in all the countries we visit, so we share that feeling with you. Because honestly, being able to talk and understand cultures that you might have judged or had some kind of prejudice against without having met them before, after being able to interact, it's incredible how much it can open your mind and everything you can come to understand and respect. Well, the thoughts, the upbringing, the culture of those people. And Agustin, what do you like least about working on a cruise ship? Or what would you change? About life, well, working on a cruise ship.
What do I like the least? And that's a tough one because I really like working on ships. Obviously, like I said, it depends on the position you have. It's always going to be different. And it also depends on the experience you have and how you approach that job. But for me, being so far from my family for a long time is what I like the least. I think that happens to everyone. That's probably the hardest and most difficult part, but it's something you sacrifice for a dream. I'm someone who dreams a lot, but I also take action. That's how I am. So if you want to achieve your goals, there are things you have to sacrifice. And well, you have the hope that when you come back, you can share the fruits of all that hard work with your loved ones. Undoubtedly, it's extremely challenging, which is the hardest aspect. We stay in contact daily, but it's not the same as being present in person. Sharing a moment with your mom, your dad, with your siblings. That's something you also, looking on the bright side, learn to enjoy and learn to appreciate. On the other hand, yes, after so much time away.
It makes every moment you spend together when you return worth 3 times as much and you dedicate much more time to each other. Because sometimes we are physically present, but we don't connect with people, whether it's because of our routine or even because of technology itself, which, even though we're physically present, separates us. And I think being far away happens to us too. We spend very little time in Venezuela annually. When we go back, we try to spend time with our family, our friends, and our dogs that we love very much. And well,
Another
thing that really intrigues me is that about 10 years ago, I went on my first cruise. And I remember that when I got on that cruise, we did an emergency drill. On this cruise, we didn't do it. But behind the scenes, we were talking about what the procedures were like to control so many people. Have you ever had to deal with any kind of emergency or drill? Or tell me a little more about that training, that preparation they give you to act. Well, at the moments you least expect on board a cruise ship.
That's also something very important when it comes to working on ships. I think it's one of the first things we have to keep in mind. And they let us know if based on the training we have, we need to train a lot before getting on the ship and during as well, whether it's not just about our specific job. As I mentioned, I'm sports staff. As with any job, there are certain safety procedures to follow. But when we get on here, they always explain it to us. And it's something we have to know very well and keep in mind since we have this job, but we also have others. And usually whenever we get on the boat, they assign us a task. Yes, there is a task that is specifically related to safety and to the drill, as we call it, which we do once a week, which is the emergency drill we perform. All the crew, including myself, are trained to move a certain number of people in case an emergency happens. It usually doesn't happen, it never happens, but if it does, you must be ready and available and know what to do in that situation. So everything related, for example, to codes, to handling flammable materials and so on. Just like downstairs, things can happen upstairs too. Maintaining a safe environment is crucial. And in case any problem occurs or the ship has any malfunction and so on, we have to be ready to deal with that problem. Obviously, there is a lot of security. You will see that on all the walls there are fire alarm buttons, there are phones, there are people related to that. And at the same time, maybe in many photos you have seen, and even on this ship, there are lifeboats. There are also life rafts that are, depending on the ship, bigger or smaller. There are more or less, these are ships that are designed for all the people that are up here. It's tight, but anyway, everyone fits in there too. So here I think this cruise ship has about 6,000 passengers, and there are about 2,000 crew members. So 8,000 people have to be able to fit into those lifeboats too, even if it's really tight like that, but they have to fit. And we have to be in charge of different areas of the ship. On such a big ship, to know how to distribute those people to those boats, for example, that could be a task assigned to you.
Wow, like I told you, on this cruise we didn't do an emergency drill with the passengers. But I imagine that now, with all the advances in technology and the optimization of emergency procedures, they considered that with the staff training, it's enough. Also, as mentioned in the previous video about the cruise costs and overall experience, in general, you'll notice that there are 2,000 crew members working on the cruise. For 6,000 guests, that's almost one person for every 3. That means it shouldn't be too complicated for them to move around or help with evacuating the cruise ship if necessary. But I think Royal Caribbean has never had an emergency.
It has never happened, but well, obviously you have to be prepared.
There's always a first time.
Yes, it could happen. The possibility is very remote, but regarding that possibility, you must still be prepared. Big companies are unwilling to leave anything to chance. So it's very important, and it's almost as important or even more important than my main job. That specifically requires working on ships, whether you have any role on the ship, whether it's lower or higher up, you have a function in that, which is also very important.
Okay, well, we keep walking around and we keep asking him.
And what advice would you give to all those who want to work on a cruise ship someday?
Advice, well, first, study English. I think that's the most important thing because, well, without English, you can't get in. And then get trained or do something you enjoy, because here the contracts are very long. Like I said, you're very far from your family, so you have to do something you like beyond just traveling and all that, which is obviously very nice, and most people do it for that reason. But you also have to have a good time here inside. So for me, the most important thing is study English. That's my first advice. Then do or apply for something you enjoy doing daily, or dedicate yourself to something you know is right for you.
There are many job positions available here, including singer, dancer, kitchen staff, and maintenance.
I think I'm barely scratching the surface with all the things you can do in this bathroom.
Yes. I mean, even if you want to work, for example, as a mozo, as a waiter, as an assistant waiter, because there's an assistant mozo, there are many positions you can get into with little or maybe no work experience, just with some course or something like that. Obviously, like I said, communication and English skills are essential, because that's the first thing they'll consider when you apply. When it comes to your job interviews, but yes, choose something you like. Some people here are into music with several bands. Others, like me, are into sports. There are also people who are into other things.
Logistics.
Ship repair workers were observed painting and performing maintenance during stops.
Maintenance on everything. I mean, you never stop working.
Because
While some rest, others give.
Exactly. The ship is kind of divided between the maritime part, let's say that's the maintenance part of the ship, and the hotel part. Well, this is like a hotel or a city on the water. So it's like there is a very clear division between the logistics part and the marines part. It's good that if you have a skill, sometimes that's required. Sometimes it needs a bit more experience and something very specific, which is also possible. If you do, for example, if you are a locksmith, if you are a welder, if you are specifically a marine, you can apply. But at the same time, if you have another activity or profession that you do on land, like being a barista, a musician, or as I said, a trainer, you can also apply. For the hotel area,
diver, there's a show with divers, synchronized swimming. I mean, there are so many magicians. There are magicians too, we saw them.
Magicians. There are.
If you dream of working on a ship, now you know there are many opportunities to do so.
And Agustin, I want to ask a question that I'm sure everyone who clicked on this video has in their mind, and that is, how much do you earn working on a cruise ship? I imagine that depending on the position, the salaries vary. But anyway, can you tell us based on your experience? Or me? I don't know if you've made friends or acquaintances on the different ships you've been on, and if you've shared this information. So if you can give me a range or an estimate of how much you can earn monthly, or if it's by contract, how does it work?
Well, that's also a pretty particular topic when it comes to working on ships, which usually, it's very important like in any job, but it's quite particular. The amount of redundancy in what I'm about to say will vary based on your specific job position. You might think that maybe Marines, captains, and others make a lot of money because they are in charge of the ship, basically responsible for the safety of the whole ship. They have a lot of responsibilities. Of course, we have them too. And in relation to that, one position earns more, another earns less. It also depends on the area. There are positions where there is a fixed salary, like for example, the spa. I've worked in the spa because I've been part of the fitness team, which is actually part of the spa area as well. And basically we had a minimum in that case. Nowadays I have a fixed salary. At that time when I had that minimum salary, it was around $800 or $1,000, depending on the ship. And we earn certain commissions in relation to the number of classes, in relation to the number of people who joined our classes, in relation to various products or services that we offered, in relation to our profession. We did get a certain percentage that we took based on what we did. That also tends to happen a lot in the bar area, for example, as well as in the area of shows and so on. But there are other workers like me, in my case, who now do have a fixed salary. Salaries on ships generally tend to be around $2,000, $3,000, or even up to $4,000.
In these companies like Royal Caribbean, which is the largest one?
Yes, in the ones that are the largest companies, like Royal, which is the largest one, or Norwegian Cruise Lines, which is Norwegian Cruise Lines. Maybe you've heard of it. Then there's also Carnival, there's Mediterranean Shipping Company. There are several companies that obviously fluctuate, but more or less those are the ranges we're talking about for an entry-level position. Then obviously there are certain people who are in charge of those groups of beginners, who are usually either the supervisor or the manager. That would be like the general manager. That's where you obviously earn more depending on the number of people you supervise. Those salaries can be around $5,000 or even $7,000, $8,000. And then from there on up, there are positions that are more managerial, higher up, obviously. That's something quite particular because, for example, in my case, I leave my country, which is Argentina. People from Latin America or countries with weaker economies often tend to do this. These are salaries that are really very useful for us. And generally, you'll see a lot of people here whose countries' economies aren't very good. So a salary like that, considering that here we eat, we don't have expenses, everything is included on the ship, the margin we have left is the full salary, that's really good too.
That's exactly what I was going to talk about, because I've seen people from the Philippines, China, India, and I've also seen people from Chile, Argentina, Colombia. Those are some of the nationalities we've seen on this ship. Just like you said, now that I think about it, maybe in the economies of those countries, earning a salary of $2,000 or $3,000 a month is a big deal. And you basically get to keep all of it for yourself because you don't really have any necessary expenses. I imagine you'll spend a little when you get off at the port or if you want to do something extra, but food and lodging, I imagine internet is also included.
Exactly, the internet. In the case of the internet, for example, that's something we do have to pay for. It's true that we have certain rates for us which are different. They're special compared to the guests, the passengers. Also, for example, when it comes to restaurants and so on, we do have different rates since we have the benefit of working here.
Because you have to pay if you want to eat at a restaurant. You also have restaurants that aren't included in the free meals, so to speak. Exactly, as I mentioned before, we have our own area where we have restaurants, bars, and so on. But I didn't know they were paid.
Of course, those aren't paid. the ones that are from our area, let's say. But then we can go to the bars you go to the restaurants you go to. Obviously, it depends on the position. I'm part of the staff, so I've been able to get to know some restaurants and so on, with an obviously preferential rate compared to what it is to work on ships. But yes, basically that's it. That's the reason.
Because it makes a lot of sense that if you worked for 7 months and barely spent anything, then you can make that money last for the other 5 months of the year. Of course. Well, you'll work a lot more because you told me you have about half a day off. I imagine that's weekly, right? Or is it a cruise, like, by route segment?
Well, yes, I can answer that question for you. In relation to my previous contract, since I haven't even been here a week yet, so it's relative to each position, but in relation to my previous job position, we had about 1 day and a half. That is a
day
and a half divided. Yes, usually we didn't have a full day off. We had half and half, so 3 days off.
All that in the week or per cruise?
In the week, yes. Usually it's in the week, yes. Okay. Usually cruises are for a week, yes, but yes, during the week, we have that time that they absolutely have to give us so we can go out and everything.
Well, those who would like to be on a cruise could consider it 7 intense months of work and then 5 months of rest. Or like he did before, 10 intense months of work and then 2 months. But hey, living life to the fullest because you have that money saved from those 10 months, right?
Exactly, yes. Working on ships can be viewed in different ways, depending on one's perspective. Because there are people who come specifically for the money, yes. People who, as I mentioned, the economy in their country isn't very good. So a salary in Argentina, for example, like what a staff member can earn here, you just can't get that there. You'd have to be a politician maybe, but let's not get into that. But well, basically there are different types of people. There are some who come with the philosophy of really getting to know the world, because this job gives you the chance to do it. So people go out, enjoy themselves, travel. I mean, they take a lot of taxis to go to specific places to get back on time and so on. Or is there also a set time for you to go out and come back? So if you don't come back, the ship leaves. That's also very important. You have to adjust whatever you want to do outside according to the time you have available. You can't get lost because if you do, the ship will leave you behind. And well, simply to sum up the idea, there are people who come more for the money so they can do things, just like Emma was telling me. The fact of saving up money, putting money aside to maybe do something else with that money later on or whatever. And there are other people who come here and maybe they do it for the experience of traveling, getting to know the world. In both cases, you'll learn a lot, travel and see new places. This job has allowed me to become familiar with many countries. In this case, we're in the Mediterranean, so I've gotten to know Spain, Italy, France, and many places.
Did you also sail the Mediterranean on other ships or visit other countries as well? I'm really curious about that. Which countries have you visited? Which one is your favorite so far? Visiting them through cruises?
Well, I've been on 3 different ships. My first contract was split into 2 because in the middle I had a transfer. During that transfer, I was here in the Mediterranean. So these places that we're going to visit here with the ship, I do know them. I have been there several times. Like it could be Barcelona, it could be Malaga, it could be Napoli, it could be Civitavecchia or Rome. There are places that I do know. But on my first ship, for example, the place I liked the most was Iceland. It's a beautiful place and it's quite different from what you usually know. So that was the one that caught my attention the most. I've been around the Caribbean, so I've visited several Caribbean islands like Grand Cayman or St. Thomas, which I really liked a lot. Many anecdotes, many things to discover and to tell. It's fascinating.
I have one last question before we end this video, and I'm thinking right now 7 months. How do you satisfy your most primitive, most carnal needs? Do people hook up here on the cruise, and how would you ask that? In Argentina, can staff members have relationships with each other?
You mean romantic? We're not going to go into detail?
Well, yeah, relationships like having a girlfriend or that, or just friends. With benefits, Or stuff with guests, it's possible.
Exactly, look, spectacular, a brunette, like, look.
Well, that's a good thing. a climax topic. Here, I think it happens to all of us. Basically, you can have any kind of social or emotional relationship with the crew, share what it means to the workers. You can do whatever you want, however you want, whenever you want, not wherever you want, but as long as you don't
Interfere with your work.
exactly, it's something fundamental. That's it. It is what it is. Contact with the guests is something we have to take into consideration. We have to keep a certain distance, certain codes. You can't have any kind of social or emotional relationship with them as it's not possible.
It's part of the company's policies.
At the first sign of doubt, do they even kick you out?
But
Well, a WhatsApp share and then she leaves.
To ask me.
Could that be? There are many anecdotes related to that story.
I was intrigued because honestly, working for 7 months or even 10, like you said, without earning a little extra, it's tough.
Manuel, not everything is about this.
No, not all of this is part of the part.
It's part of that activity.
Agustin, thank you so much, first for making this video with us, and second for answering absolutely everything we could think of.
We probably missed something, so leave it in the comments and we'll try to get Agustin to join the video and comment.
Of course, no problem.
I'm going to do it, and
Remember, we already agreed to be friends like Agustin. We hope that the next time we go to Argentina, he'll be down there because also Argentine Patagonia is one of the places we most want to visit in that country. So, obviously, if you have more questions, we'll ask Agustin. Here it will be.
at your service.
Remember to subscribe and like the video. See you next time.